Started and
We're live. How's it going, Chris? Good to be here. Live.
I get to
Clear all the cum out of your throat.
clear the cum out of my throat. Yes, that's exactly what I had to do.
So how's it going?
It's going. It's going. How's it going with you? Let's talk about
pretty
you.
alright.
I'm way more
Interested in me than in
enthused
yourself?
about. Yeah, let's talk about
You're
you.
being
man.
a very good host.
That's just the way I am, man.
All
My
right.
story is inconsequential. You see, I do not matter in the grand
I
scheme.
don't know.
of
I
things.
mean, Terrorisk is such a prominent podcast, a defining feature of our era.
Fuck yeah. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm just
No, take your time, please. Play around on your phone, broadcast.
Fucking all right.
this
What
live
were
event.
what were we talking about? We were talking about how you met Dasha and Ed. Wait, you met
Yeah.
them both together as a unit?
Well, no, they're individuals at the party I was at, which was the
They weren't
the Vera
conjoined to the hip right
ball. It's a Shakespeare trutherism party that was held in like West Village by a bunch of right-wing Twitter people. Anna and Dasha were there.
Yeah,
Jack,
they're
the
trying to
perfume nationalist.
they're trying to ingratiate themselves with both ends of the political spectrum.
Well, clearly they mostly have alienated the left at this point, as has everyone that was in a post-left or some form
Well,
of...
it's really, really, really easy to alienate the left, but you know.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not overtly on board with the litany of rules currently surrounding the acceptable left, you get lumped into the right wing, regardless of your
All right,
individual
so
opinions.
not personal shit aside, like personal prejudices, biases, preferences aside, what do you consider like generally the quote unquote acceptable left? Like what does that look like to you?
I guess I'm referring to... By that I mean the currently dominant one that you see in both the mainstream
Honestly,
Democrat
I don't
Party
see any
and-
fucking.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, no, you were
Yeah.
describing.
As well as some various forms of acceptable radicalism that you'll find in a lot of places, particularly among the general public in blue state or blue cities. Traditionally, when you're describing the left, is usually more within a Marxist background, a class first focus.
Well, yeah, that's
at least
the
for
right way to
last
look at it. The wrong way to look
150
at
years,
it. Yeah.
200 years, let's say. Wait, I could go back further, but still. It's interesting that the current moral platform, much often mentioned as, wokeness, it's frustrating because there's not a clear definition for this kind of vague religious social movement.
It's the vibe change.
Yeah, I'm going to keep using woke because it's in such common parlance, but if you want me to define it more, there's a lot of focus on discrimination, personal hurt.
Well, I mean, I think my theory is that it only looks that way because most of the people that you're going to be exposed to online are people who have the time on their hands to bitch and complain about shit, particularly of a bureaucratic and political nature, socio-political nature, I should, say specifically. And these are the people that you're going to hear the most because these are the people with the fucking actual time on their hands to be able to like sit on the internet and air their grievances about like the state of our economy, for instance. Oh, inflation is so bad because our government hates trans people or something like that.
No, I wouldn't even say that because normally someone who's very concerned about trans rights and lives, valid, rarely will mention anything regarding actual policy and certainly not economics. Talking about inflation is something that's more of the...
You know what? You're right. I'm just saying. I think it was just topical because
No, I know what you mean.
We were at some point talking about the trans movement, but you're right. I'd say another demographic that's more characteristic of what I just described would be like We'll be feminists. We'll be women. Because they do have a point. You know, like, you look at, like, any fucking, you know, whatever, any achievement of society, and women could always be like, yo, that would have never happened without women. And, you know, on some level, they're always going to be right. Because even, you know, all men...
without women...
Yeah. So it's like one of those things that you could just say at any fucking time and you're going to be right. So that's why I think it's like, you know, kind of a tired thing. One of my favorite things is like, oh, women invented the computer. I'm like, dude, it's not that simple, man. So that's all I want. That's all I say.
There's a female
though.
programmer who is famous in part because her father was Lord Byron, referring to Ada Lovelace. I'm good, thank you.
Oh, we're gonna do this again. Where I keep passing
Yes,
music,
yes,
Joey.
No, I'm going to try to stay mostly sober so I don't get too boring and wasted.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
I've
already
tried-
off as I am most days.
I've tried doing that for the past 5 years. It did not work well.
Well, look, both the mainstream Democrat Party and cool social spheres are dominated by a suite of beliefs and behaviors, such as, you know, once again, the traditional left, usually you're referring to like a Marxist tinge, class-focused, either first or class only. A lot of complaints, things that take up a lot of time in newspaper articles, people's
Is
conversations.
being fat actually bad? Like, you know, that's what I see all the time.
It's bad for
now.
your health, but I mean, the population is increasingly fat, so it makes sense to describe them as a victimized group. And they are victimized in a bunch of ways by their own bodies, by the fact that they're ugly, limited mobility.
Yeah, the body thing I totally sympathize with because I don't think it's entirely people's like fault. You know, I really think people are fat because the food, and particularly in this country, is like so I don't.
Zog slop.
It's just bad. Yeah, it's slave food. That's what Steph Ka called it. I was like,
I know. The thing is that slaves had, I think, and probably terribly malnourished, had a lot more. They weren't obese. They were just starving and malnourished.
Yeah.
But it does. You know, being fat makes you more tired. You sweat more. You're more sedentary. It does feel like it's very helpful for sedating people, but I don't even think it's deliberate. I think it's, I don't know.
I think it's a byproduct of the food.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like a lot of people, like literally,
it's also multi-causal, where people live more sedentary lifestyle.
and a lot of times people like, especially now, we live in such like an indulgent. Well, I'm not gonna say us as in like speaking for the whole fucking world, but as an American, I could honestly say like we have such easy accessibility to like, you know, things
high
like
caloric content foods.
Yeah.
That have been precision engineered to be as tasty as possible.
But, you know, it's not just that. It's that on top of the alcohol, on top of the fucking cigarettes.
SSRIs.
On top
cigarettes
of the
would
SSRIs.
actually be better if we had more smoking. People would be thinner.
But you know what? Like, maybe this is what was always supposed to happen. Like, look at the pug, right? The pug would never have developed that way unless it actually found, like, a means of having everything done for it. A pug doesn't have to worry about hunting. A pug doesn't have to worry about anything. A pug doesn't even have to worry about looking cute. It could just look like its ugly-ass fucking self, and people will take care of it. Maybe the pug is actually an example of what, like, peak evolution looks like. Maybe we're supposed
the pug
to...
didn't actually turn out that way. That was due to selective breeding.
But who's to say selective breeding isn't itself part of nature? Who's to say we're not selectively bred by the fucking seasons and the crops and you know?
That would just be natural selection. But you could say
that's what I'm saying. It's like selective breeding is really just a subsect of natural selection in a way.
Part of how evolution works, yeah.
Just like
it
how
doesn't mean it's bad.
Just like how you can't even really call pollution unnatural because we're natural beings who create the pollution. Ergo, nature on some level wanted this pollution to happen. We don't speak for nature. You know, like nature has mysterious plans. Maybe nature it does want to wipe us out in the small term, which we could consider long term because for nature, small term is like a billion years. You know, that's like chump change. For us, that's like that's like millions of a millennia. You know, like.
Well, also humans are probably naturally... Well, you would think humans would be adverse to destroying themselves. You know, organisms are expected to survive is a big part of evolution.
I think every organism on Earth is prone to killing because everything on this Earth has to kill to eat. Even herbivores, even cells, everything.
Yes, but what about
actually? That's not true.
Self-killing?
Plants do not have to kill to
Yes.
eat. What am I saying?
Herbivores.
I wish we were more like plants. To be honest, I wish we could all just like sustain. How sick would it be if humans could just fucking do photosynthesis? I would love that.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
It would be cool.
Yeah, do we have the
would
same
be a lot
vape?
more sedentary. I think we do have the same vape. Yes.
Clink.
Clank.
Yeah, that was fan service right there.
Regular Zoomers, the two of us.
Nah, I'm way
Yeah,
past
we're
that
both
point.
geriatric. I know.
Yeah.
Um.
I don't know. Honestly, though, I think I do feel myself aging slower than my peers. You know, I have dudes like, you know, that are the same age as me, and they've been balding for like the past 3 years now, and I'm like, sorry, man, can't relate. I'm gonna look like I'm fucking 21 forever.
Both of us have genetic advantages there, since we're not balding.
Yeah.
Instead, we both have luscious heads of hair.
Luscious heads of hair, he says. So yeah, this is I mean,
Your apartment.
do you see my apartment changing like with each
Barely.
Barely? All right. I got to
Barely. I mean, to be fair, you're a man, so you're less likely to decorate the whole place. Girls will go
You know what's
into a
fucked
place
up?
and immediately decorate it.
You know what's funny? As a guy who's lived with a woman before and who's dated
Gay.
women before, it's literally like, you know, once you've experienced that, you kind of see it coming again. You kind of see it happening to you again. So I'm like, I'm moving into this place, and I'm like, you know what? I doubt like it's gonna go any other way, except I'm probably gonna start dating a girl, and she's probably gonna move in, or either that, or we find a place together. You know, that's
It's a good sized space for two people.
But like, you know, suppose it's the former option, right? And a girl I see and does end up like moving here.
Mm-hmm.
If I decorate it too much, that's just gonna be a fucking pain in the ass. You know, it's gonna be more bitching for me. So I'm just like,
Well,
I'd
this
rather
sounds
keep it-
like some simp behavior that you can't convince your girlfriend
No,
to keep
I mean,
up your
actually,
anime
you know what?
posters.
You could call it simp behavior, but I see it as the equivalent of like a Marine going out into battle, and then he keeps like one of his dog tags in his boot in case like his head gets blown off. So it's like, yeah, in case my head gets blown off, they'll be able to tell who. It's basically like hoping for the best, planning for the worst, you know? And I am planning for the worst.
And
here.
also, in both scenarios where a girl moves in, or three scenarios, one doesn't move in, or one moves in and then moves out, by not putting up anything, not decorating, you're not spending any effort at any point.
Exactly. I'm being efficient.
Also,
you know?
yes, you're fine with the bare wall. I mean, I am too, honestly. Even
Yeah,
though
hell's
it's
yeah.
more about aesthetic. I keep telling myself I'm going to decorate my room, but I don't.
You know what's funny? It's like I consider myself a creative person, right? Because I make a lot of shit. I express a lot of shit. I feel a lot of shit. You know, I would say that's all like the trifecta of a creative person. It's just I don't give a single flying fuck about my personal aesthetic. I don't give a fuck about like waking up to like, you know, pretty things to look at every day. I don't give a fuck about, you know, wearing pretty shit. I just really don't. You know, I guess in terms of like my personal
I
style.
like that Haori you wear sometimes.
What?
Haori?
You mean that the kimono thing? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on the floor right behind you.
Haori.
Yeah, that's just some shit. That's one of those things. It's like it's definitely not something I take seriously. You know, some
Yeah.
people take what they wear seriously. That's definitely not an article that I would consider, you know, something I take seriously. But, you know, yeah, I do wear that because I like it. You know, and that's one thing. That's different. I think if you like something, even if it looks stupid, you'll still wear it just because you fucking like it. That's different. But like people who put that much effort into the aesthetic of their surroundings, that kind of betrays something to me. That means like to me like you don't have a creative outlet like in terms of like a raw art where it's like you're not like putting out like essays, or you're not like making paintings, or you're not writing poetry, or you're not making music or something like that. So what other way are you going to express that except in your clothes and decorations and the paintings? It's like curating as opposed to creating, which I think is also a form of creation in itself. Don't get me wrong. You know, they both still like require the same kind of like sensibility of like beauty and what you consider beautiful, and I get that. It's just like it's just weird, you know. It's something I think about a lot. It's like something like, you know, things that like like you would think an artist would give a fuck about. I just do not. I really don't fucking care. I guess I'm more into the feeling of things as opposed to like the look of it, you know.
Yes. Well, it feels a little bit like cope for you not decorating the place.
I mean, come on, dude. I'm old, man. Like I've
Same.
lived in a bunch of different places. I've lived in decorated places. I've lived in unfurnished places. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't make a big difference to me either, to be honest.
but because it's like, you know, I think it's just like all right, even look at my clothes. Like I
Yeah.
literally wear the fucking same thing every day. Like you look
Yeah.
at my wardrobe, it's just all black t-shirts, all black skinny jeans, black socks. It's like, and it wasn't always like this. I used to wear clothes of color, you know. I used to be a
Thank you for using the correct term.
Yeah, I used to do that. What happened was like too many people started like stealing my shit. You know, they would borrow stuff and never return it, and I just like got so lazy when it came to replacing it. I would just like say like, fuck it, I need shirts, I'll buy shirts. I need pants, I'll buy pants. And instead of thinking too hard, because by then I was like too busy, I was like, nah, I'm just gonna get it in black because black goes with everything. So I just started doing that, and here we are. Like, now I dress like an autistic person. And you know, I actually did Google this because I thought I was like maybe becoming autistic, maybe I was like becoming retarded. But
were you getting a lot of vaccine injections?
No. I mean, I looked it up, and apparently it's a very high IQ thing to do. Like, apparently Albert Einstein did the same thing. Mark Zuckerberg does the same thing. Steve Jobs, they always wore the same shit. And apparently, like, decision fatigue, it was like a big thing. And I don't think they planned for it. I don't think guys like those guys like thought to themselves like, oh, I got to make sure to ration my decision energy so that I don't fucking waste it on what I'm gonna. I think it's just they just thought up too much about other shit, and I do feel that, where it's like.
It's
honestly,
like how the Chinese, who are very high IQ people, only wear tunics and rice hats, or they wear Mandarin.
If you're talking about the Chinese are categorically one of the worst dressed people in the fucking world. Which is honestly funny in terms of like East Asian culture, like where you look at like Koreans as a contrast, and they are the best dressed. But South Korea in particular, and it's like if you want to look at the why, you could say a lot of things, but look at their like economic history. Like South Korea was literally hijacked by like Western like capitalism, whereas like China does very much so have its roots in like Soviet-based Marxist like communist ideology in a lot of ways. They got hijacked in history just a little earlier. So it's like, which one produced the better style? And it was definitely
Chinese in general really actually punch beneath their weight in cultural output. Like Hong Kong was really an outlier.
Nah, see, I don't like that. I don't like the argument where they say, oh, China's like culturally bankrupt. Like that to me is like highly unfair because,
go on.
To be fair, like they created Kung Fu.
Yes, they did a lot of big things early on, and then they were like, we don't need you to do anymore, which I respect.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, and they didn't technically create Kung Fu, but they created Kung Fu movies, which are a fairly modern development. It was within like the last 2 centuries, so.
I mean, they have the roots of that going back in, what is it, wuxia?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
And those stories.
And it's also like, and that's also all rooted in their like actual like the actual like I wouldn't call it like mythology, but they did kind of make like a legend, like a veneer of like a legendary, kind of fairy tale-esque element to the romance of the Three Kingdoms and shit.
Even going back further than that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I think
the romance of the Three Kingdoms was like the final. It was like the end of that.
It's like from the 15th century.
But it was the most coolest part. It's just like in Japan where you look at the Meiji era. That was like the coolest thing when shit was like really changing. You were like, fuck.
Well, a lot of people
are gonna die.
To be fair, a lot of people. I think there's a lot more focus on the Sengoku period than Meiji.
Well, the Sengoku period is where all the historic like artifacts pull up from, where we learn the most about like samurai culture. A lot of it was recorded. Well, it's not that most of it was recorded in the Sengoku period, but a lot of it was preserved since the Sengoku period.
Fair. It's also cinematic of an era. Like
the eras before that were also very cinematic too, though.
Sure. But come on, there's a lot of material to work with, which is why you have so many samurai films. You have a bunch of different factions, bandits.
Wasn't that when guns were like first coming around, or? Yeah,
there was early guns. Some of them had guns, and various daimyos did more training with the Portuguese.
The fucking Portuguese,
or the Dutch. First the Portuguese, then the Dutch.
Fucking Portuguese.
I need to learn more about Catholicism in Japan because it sounds like an interesting story.
Is that what spread there first? Catholicism?
Yeah, because of Jesuits.
Fuck.
And backlash against that as part of Japanese history in a key way. It's probably a factor why so many anime and JRPGs have a Catholic Church-like villainous organization.
Yeah, but I remember one anime that actually subverted that trend, which was Samurai Champloo. They did have like this like mini story arc where they did introduce like the Christians of like the outer islands of Japan, and how they were very much so persecuted because
they were.
Because the Japanese are more fucking xenophobic than like a lot of people like really realize.
Yeah, although at the same time they're also noteworthy as being a highly xenophobic people. I guess except for people that go there and then surprised by it.
But you know what? They should. They have every right to be
Yes.
xenophobic. Like they have something that's worth preserving, like unmolested by like globalization and its influences. You know, like I really do believe like they have something special, and it really is a shame that I don't see it lasting for like another 2 centuries at all.
I don't know. Their birth rates aren't too bad for an East Asian country.
I think
or
it's
for
pretty,
a country.
I think it's pretty fucking bad.
Not as bad as South Korea. Like, I think Japan's birth rate
Well,
is like
South Korea's
1.5
been
or
South
something.
Korea is done. Like the only hope
Yeah.
for here's
Here's what I think, by the way. I might have said this before. I think that the need for labor will lead to limited migration from North Korea. North Koreans will become the Mexicans of South Korea, and that gradually the two states will reunify with, I don't know, under what rules.
to me, like as a Korean heritage born person, like the only ideal scenario, if you're a smart person, if you're not like a retarded Korean, patriot or nationalist or
I
whatever.
mean, how many of
on
those
the
even
side-
exist in South Korea?
A lot.
Okay.
But generally speaking, because there's South Korean hicks, like they exist.
Fair, right. I'm thinking too much of Seoul and not enough about the countryside.
But like, if you really think about it, like any Korean worth their salt, whether they're from the north or the south, and they really did their homework and they did their thinking, there's only one logical conclusion that could truly benefit Korea as a nation, which is unification.
Yeah, totally.
There's nothing else that'll do it.
What do you think of my theory of that being the means of unification?
That's a brilliant theory, because like if there was ever a method of unification, because like first of all,
slowly doing it. They don't have to necessarily change their government.
because like because you're saying that because you acknowledge that both Koreas can never be unified strictly bureaucratically. It'll never happen because the superpowers on either side of the world do not both mutually do not want Korea to reunify, because that alone people don't get it. Yeah, Korea is a small as bean peninsula of a country, but like you got to understand the implications of, because like it's what Korea already has.
and it's a
First of
high
all,
population, especially when you combine both of them.
they have high population, they have cultural influence, they have a booming economy, they have huge influences all across like technology, global technology across the network. And like honestly, if Korea did unify, if both Koreas unified, that would be a threat to every single person in the world.
Wow.
I mean, not in like a direct sense where Korea wants to kill everybody. It would be more in a sense where it's like Russia would panic, China would panic, America would panic, Canada would panic, Europe would panic. Everybody would panic if Korea unified. And I kind of want that. Because like, yeah, as a Korean nationalist, yeah, if you think whatever, you could always be like, yeah, that's the only way. But also as a person who just kind of subtly craves chaos, I'm like, that would be so awesome to witness.
It'd be a biggest deal for America and China. I don't know about Russia. Europe would probably be happy about it because of economic improvement. Probably would be happy. Japan, Australia would probably be happy about it.
Yeah, hells yeah.
I think
going, I'm
North
listening.
Korea. Go ahead. North Korea. I think I have to look on my phone. I think it has an okay birth rate, like 1.8 or something.
I bet North Korea has a great birth rate, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet because what else are they gonna do? They don't have those like capitalist
Modern
trapping.
distractions.
Exactly. Like that's what's fucking with modern countries if you really think about it. Like it's not the it's not the fascist government that's going to prevent us. No, if anything, that's going to promote having
Well,
kids.
the thing is, that wealth is, or our current level of development deters people from having kids. Due to it becoming a higher cost as opposed to a higher benefit.
So here's what I have to say about like the phenomenon of like low birth rates in any country. You do not have to.
By the way, I'm sorry. North Korea, 1.9 births per woman. Nowadays, that's
two
really
kids
good.
that's 2 kids per. Yeah, that's crazy.
South Korea is at 0.9.
See, it's double the number.
Yeah.
So here's what I have to say about like
North Korea is higher than Russia, China.
Yeah, so what I have to say about low birth rates, aside from like, whatever, the capitalist trappings, my take is honestly like, you do not have to force a society to reproduce. A society is naturally going to fucking reproduce whether you tell them to or not. The only thing you could do in contrast or in any relation to that is to give them reasons not to.
And certainly our modern society has a lot of like psychological reasons not to.
Hells yeah.
Sociological effects deterring people from family formation. The fact that people don't go to church anymore. In work or other social spheres, they're deterred from dating people around them.
Yeah.
Everything related to dating has to be connected to a dating app, which is a bizarre and very capitalist focused system. That dating by any means other than swiping is seen as weird.
Well, I mean, it works for me as long as you're not like hideous, and as long as you don't come off as like crazy immediately.
Just be good looking.
All you like that just works to your advantage. You just go up to like any like respectable young woman and whatever, and just be like, "Yo, do you want to go on a date sometime?" You know.
That's fair.
Well, you should build up rapport first. You know, you should you should exchange names, maybe. You know.
Yeah, true. And you're non-threatening, so.
Why? Because I'm Asian? See, yes. I hate that.
Yes, that's how I was leading it to.
But it's not like I'll ever speak out against it. Like, oh, I hate the fact that people see me as unthreatening. It's more like I would just kind of take advantage of it. I'm like, well, exactly. You know what? If this is how you see me, then okay. Like, that works for me.
Isn't it confounding that in increasingly diverse America, people are not allowed to talk about these differences?
What do you mean? People have given me carte blanche to talk as much shit as I want about, like, black people, Jews, Spanish people.
Class
Hispanic
and also
people.
being in New York City helps here. But a lot of places, people are very adverse to these things. Where you see, like, the lib social prohibition against asking someone, where are you from?
Nah, people still always ask me that, and I don't mind
it.
I'll always tell them.
Yeah.
I mean, I never felt weird about it. It's just, oh my God, this reminds me. I was listening to, like, NPR 2 mornings ago.
Go on.
And I love talking about NPR. But, like,
we should just be an NPR review cast.
So sometimes, like, NPR does these segments where they're just, like, they'll have, like, poets or spoken word people come up and, like, do, like, a whole spiel, or a stand-up guy. And this one girl was going on and on and on about how, like, she had this one experience in elementary school. I think she was, like, Pakistani or something.
Yeah.
And then she had this experience of, like, drawing her and her classmates, right? And all of her classmates were white, so she drew herself white, and one of her classmates was like, no, you got to use the brown crayon for this. And it fucked with her for the rest of her life. And then when she was in, like, what is it, like, 6th grade, middle school, some boy came up to her and said, oh, what's your nationality? And she goes, reflexive, and she just ruminated on this and on the mic. She was like, oh, I'm brown. And the guy's like, brown's not an ethnicity. And she was like, and then I don't know what came over me, but I flipped out on him. I just told him off. I said, if I say I'm fucking brown, I'm fucking brown, you know.
Well, he was right. She should have just said she was Pakistani.
And then she just went on about how she justified it. She was like, I worked so hard up until that point to just admit that I was brown and be okay with it and blah blah blah. And here comes this guy who had no idea to tell me that I was wrong. No, and everyone clapped. That's what the whole crowd clapped. And I was like, fuck this shit. I wished I was in the crowd just to be like, just to say something awful, and that's terrible. It's just terrible compulsion. But
it's interesting how many people are hung up on these childhood, very mild social offenses. You hear this with black women talking about people touching their hair.
I don't like to use the word hung up, because I get hung up over shit about my childhood, but it's not like I, look at it in such a like an obsessively, like, detail-oriented way. I'm just like,
this seems to be a defining feature of her characteristic, was these very, honestly, very mild interact. It's not like kids were throwing rocks at her and calling her a street shitter.
See, all right, I remember when I was a kid, people were, like, literally pointing fingers at me and saying, ha ha, look at the chink, look at the chick, and I was... That's what made me mad. That's really what it is. That's really what it was. When I was listening to this, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I know. It's particularly with women, I've noticed. Let's turn this into a misogyny cast.
That too. That could easily be a thing.
They're more socially sensitive. I've noticed, I don't know, this is purely anecdotal.
It's not misogynist.
It's like purely anecdotal. I'm far right wing, so I interact with a lot of diverse men, and a lot of them are on the autism spectrum, and it feels like a very hyper-socialized woman of color is going to be very sensitive to these small slights. And I wonder if these guys experience similar things and either don't register them as slights, or it is refracted through a particular, becomes more like, girls won't date me.
Well, first of all, like, honestly, if you're a guy who wasn't raised under, like, fucked up circumstance, like, unnatural circumstances, very quickly, like, let's say when I was a little kid, let's say I did get offended and hurt by, like, a bunch of white kids, right, calling me names, blah blah blah, but it wouldn't take long for me as a boy to grow up and then get violence threatened on me for some reason completely, like, unrelated to race or anything, just because.
Yeah.
Once you as a boy experience that, you realize like that was nothing.
Yes,
I
you
would
do.
100% rather deal with people pointing fingers at me and calling me a chick. I would laugh that off compared to like a guy that I'm afraid of coming up to me and threatening. Girls will never understand that.
I was once on a date with a girl.
Why do you think we want to get swole, dude? Like, girls don't get it. They're like, why? And I'm like, this is why. Like,
I was on a date with a girl, and she said, words hurt. They can hurt worse than being punched in the face. And I was like,
fucking punched in the face, bitch.
I'm a very effete, non-combative dude, but I've been punched in the face multiple times.
And I'm like, dude.
And it's like, this is very different than what you think it is. It's really
no, but it's so fucking true. That's really what it is. You're just like, see, as a girl, yes, girls do get physically bullied. Girls do experience physical violence, but it's
rape and the occasional violence, but those are abrupt things.
And it's under a completely different context.
Yeah.
It has to sneak up on you. It's never like in your face for no reason. And then it doesn't happen often in society where nobody will like, do something to stop it.
The woman flees, understandably so, very quickly, or is in a rough place where she gets a lot of sympathy. Not that makes it any better.
Or it's like, let's say you're a guy with your girlfriend and some guy slaps your ass, and then you're like, I'm about to beat and he's like twice your size.
And then he's like, I want to have gay sex with you, sir. Because he slapped your ass and not your girlfriend's.
Oh, well, I'll be okay with that. I could just politely deny. But if it was like, the other situation, then I would be like, I would literally have...
The first situation you described was him slapping your ass, by the way.
Honestly, like, that's what I would do now. Like, if I was in a situation, like, where I was with, like, a romantic partner, a woman, and some, like, guy slapped her ass, and then I go to beat him up, and then he's, like, twice my size, I would literally... My first instinct would just be to, like, turn to the girl and be like, yo, I'm about to get the shit beat out of me, and I might die, so take my phone, take my wallet, bye. I would just go like, because what else? If I don't do that, then I'm the failure. Then I'm the guy who, then I'm the one who failed Mr. Miyagi, And I can't be that guy, and that's what girls will never have to fucking deal with. Even lesbians, they will never, because they're too busy beating each other up. Like,
yeah, that's true. In general, it feels like everyone has less cross-sex social skills and understanding than in the past.
I think I'm good at it, all right? I think I get girls, okay?
Yeah.
I'll never live like them. I'll never, like, live a day in their shoes, which automatically puts me in, like, another step higher than most people who thinks they get girls. Because I already know I'll never, like, fully understand them. I'll never fully 100% experience what they experience because there's so many things. And we could all say it's like, gender is a societal thing. It's a societal construct. But still, like, all right, let's go with sex. Like, I'll never understand what it's like to have a uterus. I'll never understand what it's like to get period cramps. Like, I'll never understand what it's like to be physically inferior to half the fucking world. Like, I'll never get it.
Yeah.
And I might do a lot of shit. If I was a girl, honestly, I would really go so hard in kickboxing and MMA, because a girl who does like good kickboxing, like maybe solid 3 days a week, she could like knock out I've seen it. Like, she could knock out a guy in a single punch, because it doesn't take that many pounds of force to just rattle your brain a little bit until like.
Especially if they're drunk.
Yeah, exactly.
Leaving the cells open. But yeah, it's just there's people are really seemingly unaware of sex.
I gotta ask you something. All right, this is perfect.
Go ahead.
Like, I won't hold you to this. You could say this is all for theoretical purposes. This is a thought exercise.
Go ahead.
So, what if like I were to present to you with the hypothesis that Asian men are the least physically capable men?
I could see that.
Okay, now what if I offered you an additional hypothesis that black women are the most physically robust women?
I would agree with that.
Okay, so here's a phenomenon, right? Every time I use Tinder or dating apps, like a good like 75% of my matches are black women.
How many are attractive? You have trouble telling.
A good number of them, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I'm attracted to black chicks 100%. Like, I like black chicks. Like, of course I like black. I like all chicks. I never really.
I'm an Aboriginal. I couldn't fuck an Aboriginal.
I consider Aboriginal. Nah, that's racist.
No, go on.
If I was like, oh no, Aboriginal women are just the type of black men. Like,
I disagree. That would very genetically.
No, that would be fucked up to say, because it's highly untrue.
In fact, actually, sub-Saharan Africans, the people that are least genetically similar to are Australian Aboriginals. They're really actually genetically very distant from much of the world and even other Southeast Asians.
I wonder if like white women in Australia saying like, oh, I'm part Aboriginal is like the same as like white women in America going, I'm part Cherokee.
A lot of the time it is, but not always, because I don't know the genetic reasons, but Aboriginal appearance very rapidly fades. Someone who is 1/4 Aboriginal mostly looks white, or they look like a weird white.
So what you're
person.
saying is you're endorsing like, hey, you know, if you love a really like Aboriginal chick, don't worry about your kids coming out jacked up because you know like
they
that
come
shit will
out
get
looking a
phased.
lot whiter. Actually, this is
There
well
you go.
documented. It's once again result. I don't know why.
You're doing a service, really.
Yeah, well, that was the Australian policy for a while. Most Aboriginals now are like half Irish anyway, if not more. And yes, they're just people that are going to disappear completely very soon.
I'm saying just the same thing's gonna happen to the Japanese. Just you wait.
Japanese do control their borders.
All of our anime is gonna be made by the fucking Chinese and the Koreans.
Well, I think that's already the case in a lot of ways. Taiwan, in particular, has done a lot of animation for a long time.
Korea is huge on it.
Yes, I'm sure China, maybe China too.
You want to take a hit? A little bit.
Yeah, I'll take
Smoke a
bit.
little of the reefer.
Um,
So, in case you guys are tuning in right now, I see one view. I don't know who the fuck that is, but like,
a total of 1 viewer.
yeah.
That's okay.
I like these video episodes though.
Yeah.
This is technically the second one for Terrorisk, and both of them have been with you. It's because Kane lives in Salisbury. Yo, Kane is now like going back into his detox phase. Because I remember the last video was like that because he was going into his alcoholic phase. And so like he was going MIA for that, just partying, and then he comes back and then he leaves again because he's like, nah, I feel like shit because I got to detox because alcohol fucked me up too bad. And I'm like, you piece of shit. But I can't give him too much shit because like he's only like what 27. I was 27 3 years ago. Like I remember what that was like. I was also in a very similar place in life, you know.
Yeah, same. I was in a very rough place. Unlike here in New York with great friends like you, Chris.
Thank you. Do you miss like
Boston?
Do you miss it?
No, not whatsoever.
It's a lot better here, right?
Yes, it is.
Cool. So, like, I mean, how do you feel about working is this the kind of job you would have had back in Boston? Like, what?
No, this is the first time I've had this a bar job. I like it a lot.
I bet you do like really good in tips, don't you? Cause
not that great because my bar is failing in a very dysfunctional place, but I get by.
How do you look without like a shirt on?
Terrible. Not fat though. I'm not obese at least.
What about from the back?
That I'm probably fine from the back.
So what you should do is you should get a sick back tattoo, take Instagram photos, and be like, hey, I'm gonna be bar backing, or I'm gonna be bartending here. You know,
bartending, but shirtless and also with my back face.
And then you'll have like an army of like gay ass fat dudes just coming and it's like, hey Carmen, I saw you on Instagram.
Well, I mean, men in general are incredibly horny, and gay men with no railing just get all the hornier to their benefit.
Yo.
And also detriment depending on monkeypox.
Yeah. There was this one internet meetup I went to, and there was this like gay kid he claimed he was like gay, but I think he was just kind of like experimenting with the identity, and he was really aggressive. And I was like, dude, you gotta, and I wasn't gay at all, but even I had the sense to tell him, it's like, dude, gay, you know, people don't work like that. Like, you can't just be like aggressive and like, I mean, it'll only work on people who are like retarded maybe, but you know, not.
So what would work on, well, depending on whether he fancies him or not, it could potentially work with gay men. Maybe he was deliberately targeting a straight man because he wasn't actually comfortable.
I mean,
with being gay.
look, I'm not talking about like nuanced aggression where it's like stylish and cool and edgy. I'm talking about like blatant, like, dude, that's just not kosher.
Well,
like,
you can go to a bathhouse or a gay sex party and say, yo, let's fuck, and it works just fine.
Really?
Yes, really. They're gay men.
I've never even been to any sexual bathhouse, to be honest. All the bathhouses that I've been to were all family friendly. They all, you know, they were all
had
like,
trans women in the dressing room. Yes. No, I understand that. Yes, but gay men are incredibly straightforward with sexuality.
Yeah. That's why they get laid the most out of every demographic.
I mean, there's also two men. Men want to fuck, so
well, you know what?
Double that.
Did you know, like, Geneva was the one that told me this. She was all like, yeah, lesbians having sex is actually more spiritually tonic than two gay men having sex. Because, like, two gay men having sex, it's like draining each other's chi. Whereas two women having sex, it's like cleaning a mirror. And I was like, that sounds, like, very arrogant, but I kind of see
That
it.
also sounds like lesbian bullshit, too.
I mean, let's be real. Lesbian relationships have, like, a very slim chance of working out if fucking straight couples have a slim chance of working out.
Yeah, everyone's does now.
But gay relationships don't last that long either, and they're not categorical.
Well, lesbian relationships last a long time. It's usually unpleasant for both parties for far too long. Not always, but they usually. It's like the U-Haul joke.
It's
Are you
because
familiar with the U-Haul joke?
No. Oh yeah. Every lesbian needs a U-Haul just in case. Like,
no, what do lesbians do on a second date? They rent a U-Haul truck.
Yeah, so they can move in with each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The gay man equivalent is, what do gay men do on a second date? What second date?
I don't know about that. I think, like, both get suckered in and leave for separate reasons. It's the gay guys. They get together and then they separate because they both realize it's like, dude, it doesn't matter if we get married. It doesn't matter if we adopt a child together. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you and I are both going to face fucking death alone, no matter who's in the room, no matter who either of you are married to. And at this point, we're just burning daylight. Whereas two lesbians get together and then they will leave eventually because they're just like, I just realized I fucking hate you because you remind me of me. And I don't want to be around you.
They also dress and look identical.
And I don't want to be around you because I hate you, would you be hating me, so get the fuck away from me. And that's why lesbians don't work out. So they both don't work out for, like, two very different reasons. One for a more nihilistic reason, one for a more egotistical reasons. So the key to making a gay relationship for men work is to not be so nihilistic, is to be a little more wholesome, is to try to believe in shit. And the key to working out in a lesbian relationship is to stop being such a fucking narcissist. So that's my tip. Tip of the day.
Good luck.
Tip of the day for the gay folks out there.
It's a good tip, though.
It is. I know what I'm fucking talking about, man. I think I have a little bit of a quotient. Like, I think I filled out the quotient just to have enough to be considered knowledgeable about life experiences by the time I'm 30 years old. Oh, I know a lot of 30-year-olds,
Have you been thinking about that a lot, being 30?
Who wouldn't? Everyone thinks about being 30.
Yes.
Dude, I'm about to turn 31 next month. Of course I'm fucking thinking about it. But you know what?
Think about it all the time.
But you know what? I'm okay with it because at least my music sounds good now.
Yeah, it does. You've been doing a lot of work on it?
Of course.
Good.
Always. I've always been doing a lot of work on it. It's just something, I think it was probably like 2021. That was when I got, like, super duper serious, and I was actually no, it was when I fucked up my engagement. Yeah, it was right after that, and I was like, all right, this all has to be worth something. Like, I couldn't have just messed all this good shit up for nothing. Like, I have to.
It's a very positive opinion.
But I had to do it, because if I didn't do that, then I would have just been a sad sack of shit who just ruined everything for himself for no good reason. So at least I made myself a good reason.
Good.
I had to. It's a matter of survival.
It was ex post facto.
Exactly. It has to be, even it probably wasn't that it was probably subconsciously ex pre facto,
You mean it was premeditated?
Subconsciously. I mean, think about it.
Yes.
Every musician must go through that, where it's like you self-sabotage, like, intimate relationships just because you want to leave room just in case, and like, you're looking into the future and you're like, if this works out between me and her, that might not work out between me and this. So it's like you're automatically left with a default decision from the start, and then the whole, like, first 3/4 of the relationship is really fooling yourself. It's like, I could do this, I could do this, I believe in myself, I could balance it out, I could balance out my career and my relationships, and then by the end you're like, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking, I just got to jump bail because I ruined this relationship way too much, and it's way easier to cling on to my fucking own, like, prospects. So at least I'm self-aware about that, like.
Yeah. I don't know. I mostly ruin my relationships by not caring enough.
No, that's what they tell you ruined it, but that's not the real reason.
What do you think is the real reason? That I wanted to get out and I just needed a...
Well, have you spoken to a fucking shrink about it?
Yeah.
And what did they say?
It's a mix of... Well, hard to say. I haven't asked about my most recent relationship. It's a mix of not caring enough to be devoted to the relationship,
That's all they have to say about it?
No, hanging on to it.
You know what's fucked up? Like, I don't know anything about, like, you know, therapeutic psychology or, like, the practice at all, but I feel like I would make a better fucking therapist than, like, half of these fucking
Yeah, it
people.
probably would, actually, yes. I mean, it's something that's now valorized a great deal.
Because, like, I don't think good, like, therapeutic qualities are really about, like, knowledgeability. I think it's really about just, like, or I don't think it's about, like, formula either. I think it's, or method. I think it's really about experience. Because you don't want to listen to anything from a person who hasn't experienced what you've gone through. Like, people who go through traumatic events, the last thing they want to hear is some clinical bullshit from a person who just read it from a book. The first thing they want to do is talk to a person who's been through it.
Yeah. I guess an argument for having elders in your society advise you on these things is
because they've been through
it.
They've been through it, so they could therapize you.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, I do like holistic practices a lot. You know, I'm not like a advocate for it, but as far as my own personal practices, generally, like all my ailments, both like all physical, mental, and spiritual, I go for holistic practices. I just like look for what works for me. I can't go for like the prescribed path where it's like, oh, tell me what to do. It's like, no, that is not going to work for me because I don't trust like most of the people around me, you know, for that. Like, I'm just like, no, I'm pretty sure I could figure myself out before these people. And especially because I have this access to the same literature that literally everyone else does.
You do.
So what do I have to be afraid of for myself? It's like, no, I have more to fear from other people. If anything, I got to learn to be more accepting of myself so I could tackle my fucking flaws and shit, you know? You know what's funny? Like, Kane's mom said this podcast was like about like therapy and psychology, and I was like, you know, you're probably not wrong about that.
Yeah.
It's true.
Treating your
we really do talk about like because the last thing I want to do is like sit here and gossip about shit all day long. Like, I like to dissect it. I like to like figure out how I feel about it and how I like to figure out how the person I'm talking to feels about it, you know?
How do you feel about therapy becoming a kind of religious rite that you're expected to do it to be a...
It already is.
Yeah, I mean,
it's been for like a long time.
Fair. How do you feel about that? I don't know if it's necessarily warranted for everyone.
I think it is what it is. It's a trial by fire thing. Because, like, you know, no matter what, there's going to be threats. If we're not dealing with fucking, like, people trying to give us, like, bullshit methods of thinking and bullshit mental frameworks to, like, adopt and make our own, it's only the strong who's going to realize, like, what's bullshit and what's not. The weak will cling to bullshit willingly because bullshit sounds so pleasing on the surface. And the weak people who aren't willing to face the danger. And that's another thing. It's like, so if you want to go even deeper than that, it's like, all right, so then what makes a person really fear danger? It's the people that were fucking coddled. And that's so unfair because like to be coddled is to be loved. To be coddled is to be cared for. So like to be so loved and cared for makes you so fucking weak and vulnerable. It does. I don't think it's a bad thing always. I don't, and we should create a society that does accommodate those people. But there's natural law. Like if aliens invaded, they would not give a fuck about anything we did for the past like million years. So like it doesn't matter at that point. All like we still go back to natural savagery. So I'm thinking like we need a balance. We can never ever forget the savage nature of man, of the violence, of everything, because that's a part of us for a reason. And I think to like to try to alienate yourself from that and dissociate from it to the point where you try to create this like psychological utopia where no bad feelings exist, like that's fucking... Fuck that, man. Like, that's so unreal.
It feels like a lot of things our society is going through right now is a therapeuticization of every facet of life. Would you like me to elaborate?
Yeah.
This concern about, like, microaggressions, individual slights, psychological well-being above everything else feels like an extension of a certain strand of therapeutic practice into our day-to-day personal lives. Something that's not just between you and your therapist, but an expectation that everyone else will reassure you in the same way.
I understand exactly the sentiment like you're expressing. Like I totally get it and I totally do observe that. It's just most of my observations on that in relation to like, you know, humanity as I know it, it's always online interactions. It's always the people who are chronically online that are like so obsessed with their mental well-being above all else.
You don't notice it in real life ever. I mean, think it's your selection bias? I mean, it is the case with me.
I don't fucking think so because, like, I could read the people, like, you know, listen, it's easy to read people online because, like, first of all, they could say what they say, and you could read between the lines of what they say. You could notice patterns in what they say and the frequency of the way they say things, and then you could also notice like certain keywords. You could also notice like punctuate and all sorts of shit that'll betray everything. But when it comes to like being person to person, it's like we take for granted how easy it is to read people when we're face to face.
And
So
if
it's
you're
like,
good at it.
and also there's like the given fact. It's like I have like people in my life that extend beyond just the online world. I interact with people on the daily that I never ever fucking talk to online, and I feel like that's becoming a rarer and rarer thing, and I think that's a problem.
It is.
Our lives, our social interaction shouldn't be like defined by online interactions.
I mean, it's for many people, you spend more time online than you do in meet space.
Because I work full time, and when I work full time, I spend like 8 hours behind a desk 5 days a week, and I get to fucking sit behind a computer unsupervised. Of course, I'm gonna go on social media and shitpost all day. Like, what the fuck do people expect? I'm just gonna go on there, talk mad shit, pass the time, collect my paycheck and leave. And it's cool because I work for like convicted felons. It's like been on the newspapers, it's been covered in the press, so it's not like there's anything to hide, and these people won't give a shit no matter what I fucking say. Like, it's not
a
like
great situation. A lot of people don't have workplaces that are so generous.
But it wasn't always a great situation, from when I started this gig. At one point it was really unsure for me. At one point it was something I just did out of desperation. It's just something I stuck with, and it's like that's why I think I got to where I am, is because my boss is a convicted felon, a former convicted felon, and he's like, he knows, he lives in a world where people he can actually trust are very few and far between. So the fact that I've done nothing and never put myself in a position to be able to or want to fuck him over, like, he values that a lot. And I even told him, I was like, everyone around you that works with us wants to get rich off of you specifically. I do not expect to get rich working for you. I'm here to do a fucking job. There's other things in my life that I care about. I don't care about this fucking Jew loan shark shit. I'm sorry, I don't. Like, and he knows that, and I think he respects that very much, and that's how I know he's a smart guy. No matter how fucking scummy and like objective he is, like, at least he knows like what to value.
That's good. I like my boss all right. Actually, I do like him in general.
I don't like anyone who owns a fucking bar, to be honest.
That's reasonable.
You know what though? I would like to be a club owner someday.
Why?
Because I just want to live there. I just want a space where I could go and take a nap. And for some reason, like, I feel the most comfortable when it's like loud dance music blaring, people are partying, and I could just go in some corner tucked away while all that shit's going on. I just go to sleep.
You want to be in the office above the dance floor.
Yeah, that would be sick.
Yeah,
like,
it would be nice.
Just chill there, do some coke, smoke some weed, take a nap, drink some bourbon, pay my people, talk to DJs.
Seems very stressful of a field to be in.
Of course, dude. Nobody, and you know what the thing about owning a nightclub is?
What?
Nobody who owns a nightclub has their hands clean. Nobody who owns a nightclub is 100% legit. Nobody. Everyone in the business is like in some shit. Whether it's drugs, prostitution.
Not surprised. It naturally lends itself to that.
Always
has.
It's true. And it's not that that's what I value. I mean, obviously, I'm in it for the culture, but you getting sleepy there, boy?
I am, but I'm fine. Excuse me.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You could fucking. I mean, it's a shame. It's a shame we don't have a third person where it's like.
Agree, someone else to back
yeah.
off.
Well, you could just like sleep for a bit. Just like take a breather.
Energy that you two can riff.
Yeah, let me get you another drink. You know what you should do? You should
that?
speak into the mic the story of the last date you were on. Go.
Man, the last date I was on was like 9 months ago. I went out with an Irish Jewess. We were around in, I don't know, west of Central Park. I forget where exactly. She's perfectly fine to talk to. Wasn't overly engaged, honestly. Well, she was more tolerable than many people. Very centrist, actually. Had a certain libertarian bent, but of the most mainstream publishable kinds. She took umbrage at me about me boarding the train without a mask on. Luckily, I had a bandana on me, or maybe not, because that's very cucked behavior on my part. But said, of course I'm vaccinated. Winked to the camera. It was fine. Sex was, I guess, okay. I just didn't feel very enthused about it at this point after, I don't know, getting out of a relationship an equal amount of time ago. Thank you. Yeah, and honestly, though, it was not overly bad sex or a situation. It kind of put me off to things. And I was like, yeah, I'm just not going to do this for a while and see how it goes. So, yeah, I haven't, been on a date or anything since very early January.
You know what I wish? I wish I was if I ever was in a position to go back in time and tell my younger self something, I would be honestly, stay in school so that you could get into engineering. Because if you're an engineer, you could make a bunch of cool shit. Because I wish I was an engineer right now. But what I can do is I could get into machining. I could buy a lathe. Something that'll spin a chunk of metal, carve components out of it. I really do. I really do love the idea of machining, and I've always said sometimes I just want to quit my fucking stupid finance Jewish loan shark job and work as a machinist.
You would make good money as a machinist once you would probably advance very quickly.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, nah, but I'm not going to advance as quickly as other people who've already been there doing it.
No, of course.
It's a competitive field, for the businesses, for the people.
Don't they need people with that set of talents? I'm sure there's an intense guild or union issue to deal with.
Yeah, there's probably a whole trade school you could go through.
But not even a trade school. If you're just able to show up and do the job.
Oh, an apprenticeship, but that means you have to work for free for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind. Unless, what I could do is I could just say, fuck all that and raise the money myself, open up my own shop, and hire my own guys.
Yeah. I don't know. If you're interested,
I don't even have to pay them because I would own the machinery. I'd be like, you guys get to use all this.
I bet you could learn it very quickly and start making good money and be able to do your own machinery. Especially with innovations in 3D printing and the like.
3D printing's cool. I like 3D printing.
Yeah, I do too. Would you learn AutoCAD? I know a lot of that's digitally assisted now.
I mean, it's a very old. We didn't always use it for 3D printing and modern applications of grinding down metal.
Yeah.
We used to use it for carving wood, CAD.
Yes. But
that's my favorite application for it is wood.
Really?
I love.
Well, if you already have some experience, that will give you an easy in with it.
I love wood. Wood is one of those materials that's it's I mean, don't get me wrong. If it's something that I'm always going to use, I would always prefer it to be made out of metal. But I understand the value and classiness of wood. It comes from life. It's not like a mineral. It's something that was at one point almost
alive.
Living. Yeah.
I mean, it was a living being.
Yeah. So when I see guitars, for example, it's a very modern innovation, but it's heavily reliant on the properties and molecular structure of wood fiber. It's
resonance and all that.
Yeah, and it's something that works best made out of wood. I mean, you'll have guitars made out of other shit, but it's never really as good. You could have electric guitars made out of fiberglass, I guess, but you'd want the neck at least to be made of wood.
Yeah, I'm assuming so.
I mean, I've seen aluminum necks; those are awesome. But wood is just a beautiful, fucking awesome, flexible.
Is it your favorite of the Chinese elements?
What are the Chinese elements? Actually, no.
Man.
I don't know what it is. My favorite of the elements is honestly fire.
Yeah, fire is one of the ones in China.
Because I like fire. Fire gives life.
It's like fire, water, wood, metal, air, something like that. Hold on, I apologize.
You should fucking apologize.
For staring at my phone.
You're on company
and
time.
The call I got, yes.
I think this is a pretty good episode so far.
Shit. No worries. Just some work-related thing.
Where do you work again? At a bar? Which
bar? In Astoria, Queens.
Which bar?
The last word.
The last.
I didn't want to mention it on the podcast, but yes.
Everybody go to the last word on Google and give it some shitty reviews.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, at least no one gives a fuck about this podcast.
I know, exactly. That's the benefit of it.
Nobody's gonna think to do that. But if you are listening, you should totally just go to Google, look up the last word. It's a bar in Queens, and then you could just be like, I got amazing service from my friend Carmen, who was a bartender.
Service.
He got really good sexual service to give you.
Yeah, anyway, sorry about that.
Yeah, my cat's just been sitting there staring at us for like this whole hour.
Well, contemplative of the wonders of podcasts.
I gotta give him some wet food after this.
Yeah?
Are you hungry?
I am hungry. How about yourself?
I've eaten for the day, but I could take you to get food.
That would be nice.
You want to go to that Mexican spot?
Yeah, I do.
I'll have a Corona. You could have some food.
Yeah, sounds great.
I love this. See, this is what I really want out of a podcast. Is to just be like, yo, you want to get food after this? It's
That's
like,
pretty
yeah.
common for podcasts. I feel like I've heard that many times over on them.
Really?
Yes, many times. At least any of the guys hanging out.
I think
with
that's
their
just
friends.
we forget that that's what people do when they meet up for like a club or something. It's like, what do you want to do after this? You know, it's like that's all. It's like every time I went to sword class, literally it's like, you guys want to get some like drinks after this. That's all.
Yeah,
they
you
were
want to
doing.
extend the social experience. You
And reflect on what you guys were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Sports teams are probably like that heavy, you know.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes, it's part of human social interaction.
They're like, hey, bruv, we're going to the pub today after some football, yeah?
Yeah, for football fans in the UK.
Football. Fuck. I do love that Mexican spot, though.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a very wholesome place. If you people are out there listening, I will never tell you the name of this spot, so you can
You'll
never
tell the name of my bar, but not of the.
This is way more important, dude. Because if
Fair.
you get fired from that spot, you could always come to this spot and be
That's
like,
true.
Imagine. Be like, listen, I'm a very, very prestigious bartender from Spain, and I grew up mostly in New York, in the Upper East Side, and yeah, I'm willing to be your bartender. You know, my dad, he was a famous bullfighter in Spain, and he was a bartender, and then he taught everything he knew to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just thinking about the most bullshit, outlandish story I could think of.
Neither of those. I can't speak Spanish. I don't have a Spanish accent.
That's
I
fine.
don't know
That's
New York
fine.
very well.
That's fine. Just be like, yeah, but then, you know, when I was born, my dad died. And all I got was his journals of his details.
That and his red matador cape.
And his red matador cape. And then you pull out the journal that you wrote.
Yeah. In crayon.
Oh, man. Fuck.
Yeah.
Bullfighting is fucked up. I do not agree with it. I don't think we should. I
How
think
about
that's
blood sports in general?
This is what I mean, all right? On one hand, globalization is for homos, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's a lot of cultural traditions that are just so retarded. We just got to get rid of it. So it's like, which way do we go? Like, what do we do?
Well, clearly the forces are pressing all towards greater globalization. You see that where all these regional cultural things are disappearing.
I don't even consider that with biases. I think just mathematically it makes sense. You can't
Consider
have
something like the assault on
Every
blackface in the Netherlands from young Dutch who are morally outraged at the Christmas practice of showing off Santa Claus's friend, Zwart Piet, Black Peter, who is inevitably played by a Dutchman in blackface. That was not offensive ever in Dutch culture due to, you know, its history.
It's art. That's what it is.
But
They
yes,
value
exactly,
they
the art
value
of wearing blackface.
Yes.
But it's come under assault from younger people socialized online, going to American universities.
Well, finally they woke up to it. It's like, took you long enough, you know?
Yeah. Is blackface universally offensive?
I would say so, yeah.
Really interesting. Tell me why.
I mean,
I acknowledge it's becoming universally.
because it's like using your fucking physical characteristics as like a costume, which is unfair. Because if you could change your physical characteristics as easy as a costume, then you probably would. You'd probably be a white person.
I don't know. I feel like this is kind of a bold... like, it has a particular historical context and racism in America.
No.
But
First, all
outside
right.
of America,
I think what first governs it is the warfare aspect. Is the raw physicality of the fact that white people just happen to be the best at conquering shit, not running a country, not running an empire, but conquering shit. That was what they did best, right?
For a brief period of time. I wonder how much of that is unique to whites and how much of that is being the first people to modernize in a lot of
It's
ways.
one thing to conquer your like masses and legions of people that look like you, but it's completely different to be able to like analyze people like a complete different society that looks nothing like you, to be able to break it down and be able to systemize it and like destroy it and manufacture something in its place that'll benefit directly your thing. You know, I'm not saying it's a good thing. It's a horrible thing to do to a culture, but it's a skill. It's a very fucking nuanced, like, cultural ability.
It is. How much of that is something unique to Europeans? And by Europeans, we mean a select number
honestly,
of European nations.
I don't know about
how much
uniqueness
of it-
because to me it's all mechanics to like looking at like Age of Empires. Too.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You know, that's what I'm looking at it as. You know, it's like playing like a RTS game. I'm like, you know, I get the skill trees and I get how this is exactly.
That's what I'm getting at too. Is that Europeans effectively tech down the tech tree faster, and they had a lot of innovations do that.
But there were different kinds of innovations. It's like, all right, so it's the difference between like Homo sapien innovation and Neanderthal innovation. Like Homo sapien innovation is like, yo, we could make a bunch of these spears and we could go out and we could kill shit and we could eat it, right? Whereas the Neanderthal would think, you see this sharp stone that I sharpened? I can make it even sharper. You know, it's like...
Well, I understand the analogy you're making. Though to be fair, Neanderthals also had spears.
That's what I'm saying. They had the sharpest of the sharpest of the sharpest spears, but they had very few of them because they spent less time like making more. Instead, the Homo sapiens were like, fuck it, if it's shitty, we could always make it like 3 more. You know, like that's how Homo sapiens thought.
Both are pretty similar. Well, it's hard to say exactly, but
because we weren't there. Yeah, you're right. That's unfair.
But they seem similar based on like cranium size and artifacts found in the places. I mean, I guess.
Of course, there's also like a lot of conspiracy. You know, saying like, oh, those samples are fake. Those aren't real. Those are
not even that. It's like a lot of people don't think of how many humans were alive on the planet at one time. Kinds of humans, different subspecies of us.
Yeah, for sure.
There's Neanderthals, there are Denusians in like Southeast Asia and East Asia. There's an ancestral ghost population that we haven't found any fossils of, but we know it's in the genetic record of West Sub-Saharan Africans. And to a large degree, perhaps even if they look drastically different, we had somewhat similar characteristics. There are arguments about Homo sapiens having greater tool use than most, but Neanderthals in particular were fairly close to us. I think a big factor was that they had harder or either longer I think they theorized to have had longer gestations and also perhaps bigger issues with childbirth or loss of children. The Homo sapiens obviously lost a lot of babies too. Then a lot of ways it might have been outbreeding the other groups, among other intelligence, innovations, and technological development.
Yeah, I want to ask you your opinion on something. I'll do it on the mic too. So how'd you feel about like a radio segment, right?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Go on.
Like where, I would play like original music made by myself or from friends. Preferably, from friends. I don't want to play my own music on the show.
You could put it in a song clip.
Yeah, I can put my own shit. But it's like listening to the radio for like an hour, where it's like, hey, thanks for tuning in to Terrorisk Radio. The first song is made by me, blah, 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 play it.
Sounds good.
Let it play. And then after the song ends, I could be like, yeah, that was a shitty song, whatever. Next song is by my friend. It's a lot better. And then I'll play that.
It's even shittier.
Yeah. And then after that, it's like we could talk. It could be like, yeah, so how do you feel about, like...
You can break it up with audio set, with song segments. It sounds good to me.
Yeah. Isn't that way easier so you don't have to talk for like an hour straight?
Yeah, or you could just paste them in too.
I agree. Okay, so that about wraps it up. Thanks for joining us. Fuck. Thank you all for joining us. There was one person watching. I don't know who the fuck that was.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye, guys. Yeah. That was a little successful.